Okay, so welcome back. This is part two, and just continuing where I left off there before. I was talking about how to create interesting environments and characters by using kind of some creative techniques, using the five senses, similes, metaphor, that kind of thing. So a couple of examples here. Again, this you may spot this as your own work, but just a good example here of kind of how the writer has tried to use so many different ways to make this world and this environment feel like something real, something that we can visualize in our heads. So let's have just a quick read of this. It says, "The bunker was hidden away, sheltered by lush, overgrown greenery and shadowed by the towering canopy above. A crumpled up poster that was carelessly stapled to the door fluttered in the wind. Across the top in bold letters were the words, 'Army Recruitment.' The tiny circular door creaked as I clambered through it. The warm chatter that could once be heard from outside the bunker had turned into a cold silence. The glares that followed were strong enough to burn holes in rock. I panned around the room trying to figure out why I had caused such a commotion." So if you look in there, they're talking about the lush overgrown greenery, the shadows of the canopy above, this crumpled poster, which is a nice, very small little detail that we can maybe see. We can hear it fluttering, we can see the words on it, we hear the door creak. We've got this warm chatter, cold silence, glares following. You know, there's a real sense of something that we can visualize. Here's another example. Again, well done if this is you, it's another good one. Talking here, the sentence had continued from the page before, but effectively says something about Martha's snowy pale skin, which was dragging her down to the comfort of her bed. But like a puppet, she lifted herself to her feet and almost animatronically began to move towards the stairs, only stopping briefly to smooth down her outfit. Internally, she was screaming, scrabbling desperately to escape the body in which she was held as a captive. Each step shook her, taunted her, laughed at her. There really was no escape. At the bottom of the stairs was the door, so simple and plain, yet Martha knew what lay beyond, her own personal hell. So in this one, you've got these kind of interesting, like a puppet as a nice simile in there. We've got the idea that the body was holding her captive. The steps are taunting her, laughing at her. So there's this real sense of kind of personification and simile used in these. So nice imaginative ways, something to be creative with. And if you just think back to what we were saying here on the mark scheme, extensive, ambitious vocab with sustained crafting of linguistic devices. That's the kind of thing you're looking to achieve. Okay, so the fifth point is about paragraphing. Now I've broken this up into two steps, so kind of a 5A and a 5B. So paragraphing, can you please make a note of this on your sheet as well, please? The first thing to be aware of is that no paragraphs, you can see here, so this is out of 24 marks, the organisation, right down at the bottom, level 1, 1 to 6 marks, 1 to 3 marks, lower level 1 says no paragraphs. Upper level 1, 4 to 6 marks, you can see here, has random paragraph structure. I want you to have a look at your work now and just have a think about whether or not you were paragraphing accurately. Again, maybe it's a session that we need to have, but thinking about paragraphs as something like people often do, say, oh, they should be about 6 lines, or they should be about a third of a page. It's really, that's not the way it works. Paragraphs can be anything from 1 word to 3 pages, depending. An easy thing to remember, I think I've mentioned this one to you before, is tip-top. You might want to note it down, but time, place, topic, and person. If you change any of those things, if you're suddenly writing about a morning, you change the evening, it's a new paragraph. If you're describing inside the house, you move into the garden, you've changed the place, and so on, that's a new paragraph. So paragraphs aren't set by the amount of lines or sentences. It's all about the right moment to change paragraph. Okay, so the first thing is to actually paragraph. That's part A. If you didn't do that, or your whole piece is maybe only 2 paragraphs, you probably haven't paragraphed correctly, and it's likely to pull you down in that 24 mark section. Okay. The second thing, so you might want to just pause that, and just have a check of your own paragraphing first, just see if you think it's accurate, and maybe just go through and put a couple of lines in, a little 2 lines to make the mark where you think a new paragraph should go. When you've done that, pause me. When you've done that, come back for part B. Okay, So 5B is using paragraphs with a bit of skill. So it's the next level up, rather than just paragraphing accurately, but actually paragraphing with variety and control, deliberate sense of creating something interesting. So as an example, I'll go back to the one we used before about the gloomy gateway and those short sentences we used. Let's just have a read of how this pans out. So you can see I've got the bit in red, that's my short paragraph that I'm going to talk about. So what I'm thinking about is impact paragraphs that are just 1 or 2 sentences long, designed to have maximum impact. So let's have a look. Carefully, cautiously, he moved towards the gloomy gateway. Fear gripped him. With a shaking hand, he reached for the rusting gate, worn and crooked, to finally take the step he had feared for so long. Suddenly, an orchestra of groans, pained and contorted, rang out from deep in the misty air. It was them. He now knew this was the time to make his escape, or he'd be forever trapped in the fog of despair. He had to go, fast. And then the next paragraph would begin flinging the gate open with ferocious intent, and would go on in that sense there. But what we do is by separating that paragraph, we pause. We have this extended pause, and it adds the concentration and the drama to those 2 short sentences. He had to go, fast, and then we pause again before moving on. And it just controls the pace in which the reader takes on this information, and it can just add drama and impact at key moments. So it's worth doing it on some kind of key dramatic points. Again, now you'll see what this does. If we look back at the top end of 24 marks, it says fluently linked paragraphs with seamlessly integrated discourse markers. Now your discourse markers are the things that I talked about before. For example, we talked about prepositions. That's when you're saying you could begin with above or down below. It could be discourse markers to mark time, later that day. The next morning, those kind of things. But it's making sure that your paragraphs are actually connected and flowing, and actually making sure you're using paragraphs in an intelligent way, as opposed to just randomly thinking, oh, I'll add a paragraph in here. Okay, so that's something else to work on. Right. Part 6, last bit, and it's still to do with structure, not paragraphing specifically, but how you actually ordered and structured your piece of work. So you can have great vocab, you can have similes and metaphors, but if the structure's off, the piece won't work. So the first thing I want you to think about here, this top bullet point, did you make a plan? I think I only saw, it could be that you made the plan and didn't hand it in, I'm not sure, but I think I only saw 3 across my 2 Year 10 classes. So I want you to just have a look at yours for a moment and think about, did I actually plan this out? Or did you just start writing? Did you just put pen to paper and think, I'll just see where I go? I've got a rough idea in my head, I'll just write this out and see where it goes. The more detailed plans you can make, the better your piece of work will be. And that's a guarantee, I tell you. Have a look at the second bullet point. I've said, without a plan, you will struggle. The whole point of this is that you want your piece of writing needs to feel considered, well thought out, and connected. It needs to have a reason, it needs to have a purpose. So the way you do that is by planning. So it's well worth spending at least 5 minutes at the beginning, just working out what I'm going to say, what each paragraph is going to include, how will I move through the story, which bits do I need to include. You can think about, for example, you can see the third bullet point, dropping hints, foreshadowing what is to come, making little hints at the danger that's lurking, build up the drama or build to the dramatic moment for your reader. And another key thing, which really does show that you've thought about this piece of work before you start to write it, is having a connected start and an end. When you get to that end point, if it's got nothing to do with how the story begun, it feels very unsettling for the reader. It doesn't feel satisfying as a piece of work. So when you get to that end, some connection back to the beginning, some reference back to the beginning, allows the reader to make those connections and see that this has been a well-considered piece. So an example from a student's piece of work, you can see, on the left-hand side, this is the opening. This is how somebody began their piece. And it says this: I sat in my chair, the same chair, same surroundings, same me. Another doctor, smartly dressed, speeds past me, frantically calling out what he needs to save yet another life. I sit there, holding my photo, scrumpled and torn. I look down, still no tear would fall down my face. The doctor closely followed by a large group of people, the family, and I sit still alone, looking back down at my photo, but again, no tear would fall down my face. So that was how it began. Then the piece went on, there was some interesting things happening, and it comes back. This is the end on the right-hand side. So when we read this ending, we're reminded of what happened at the beginning, and there's a clever reference to it. They said there was something about the body shape, and I stood for a minute with no movement. So I went back. I sat in my chair, same surroundings, same me. But this time, one single tear fell down my face and onto my photo. One tear carrying a lifetime of pain. And then we finished, and that's kind of really powerful because it brings us right back to the start again. And we can see, you reading that piece and you know there's been a really considered effort to focus on what happens at the end. Okay, so we know that it's building us towards a kind of emotional moment at the finale. And that gets you high marks on the structural points. Okay. So yeah, varied and effective structural features you can see there. Varied and inventive use of structural features in the very top band as well. Right. So now this is what I'd like you to do for the final part. So you're going to need to pause me in a moment. Or this will be the end of me really, but you want to go now to the bottom part of your feedback sheet. So you've been making notes on the right hand side, and at the bottom there's a little bit that says target practice. What I want you to do is redraft a small section of your piece of work in that box. But what I want you to do is think about the targets that I've given you on your sheet, what I've highlighted. I want you to think about everything I've just talked through today and any notes that you've made there. And I want you to try and find ways to improve a small section of your piece of work. It doesn't have to be an entire paragraph, but I want you to choose an area, a moment that you can develop and use some of the techniques we've talked about there. Could you add in impact paragraphing, varied sentences, some more simile, metaphor, different punctuation? You know, what can you include in there that is adding to your piece and making it better? All right. So I'll leave you to do that task. Complete that, please fill it in on the sheet, keep it all together in your assessment booklet, and I will be back with some feedback on Macbeth next. Okay, good luck everyone. Thanks very much.